They thought they were in control. Two officers, routine patrol, no alarms, no urgency. The town of Westford Ridge was still waking up. Dew clung to mailboxes. Sunlight cut through the mist like a blade. Officer Grady, seasoned and self-assured, sipped his lukewarm coffee, while Officer Lennox, fresh out of training, kept his eyes sharp and full of something to prove. Then they saw it. A black SUV, tinted windows, smooth ride. Nothing illegal, nothing alarming. But something about it made Lennox nudge Grady. "Let's check it out," he said, already reaching for the lights. No probable cause. No reported crime. Just a feeling. Just a look. That was enough. The SUV pulled over without hesitation, the tires crunching against the gravel shoulder. The driver's silhouette stayed still, hands at 10 and 2, posture calm. But inside, she could already feel the script playing out. The looks, the tone, the unspoken accusations that came before the first word. Grady and Lennox stepped out, adjusting their belts like cowboys sizing up an unknown threat. To them, this was just another stop, another chance to assert authority. But what they didn't know was this. The woman behind the wheel wasn't a threat. She wasn't a criminal. She wasn't confused or scared or even surprised. She was their new chief of police, and this stop was about to change everything. Her name was Maya Brooks, 43 years old. Black. Brilliant. Battle-tested. Today was her first day as chief of police for the town of Westford Ridge. She didn't take the job for prestige. She took it because no one else had the nerve. The drive into town was quiet. The sun hovered low over the hills, casting long shadows across the two-lane highway. Maya kept both hands on the wheel, her eyes fixed ahead, her thoughts drifting just beneath the surface. This should have been a victory lap. A celebration. A culmination of 2 decades of grit, sacrifice, and silence. But all she could feel was pressure, like a storm gathering behind her ribs. She wasn't naive. She'd read the memos, the community reports, the anonymous emails from officers inside the department. Westford Ridge wasn't just another small town, it was a stronghold. Deep-rooted, conservative, and proud of how little it had changed. She was walking into a system that didn't want her there. But this wasn't her first fight. Maya had started as a patrol officer in a city that barely tolerated her presence. She wore her badge like armor, and every promotion felt like pushing uphill with a target on her back. Then came internal affairs. That's where she made her name. She asked the questions no one else would. Uncovered lies that had been buried for years. Exposed officers others were too scared to touch. She didn't make friends. She made change. Now, with a gold badge clipped to her chest and 1,000 eyes waiting to see her fail, she was back in the driver's seat, literally and figuratively. And just up ahead came her first test. The lights hit her like a punch of color, red and blue flickering across the windshield. Maya's eyes shifted to the rearview mirror. Her stomach tightened, not from fear, but from something more familiar. Anticipation. Weariness. A quiet, practiced readiness. She pulled over smoothly, guiding her SUV to the shoulder with the precision of someone who had done this before, too many times before. The engine settled into silence. She kept her hands on the wheel. 10 and 2. No sudden movements. Not because she had anything to hide, but because she knew how quickly things could escalate. The grass crunched beneath boots. 2 sets of them. One heavy and slow, the other light and fast. Officer Grady, older, broader, took the lead, his hand resting casually near his holster. Officer Lennox, younger, tighter, radiated suspicion like heat off asphalt. Grady leaned in first. "License and registration," he said, flat and practiced, without a hint of courtesy. Maya nodded once, reached slowly toward the glove box, and retrieved the documents. No words. No sudden moves. Her silence was strategic. Lennox stepped up beside his partner, peering into the car like he was looking for a problem. "Where are you headed this morning?" His tone was sharp, too sharp for a routine stop. Maya answered calmly, "Just on my way to work." Lennox cocked his head. "Out here? Pretty early for an office job. This isn't exactly the safest part of town, if you catch my drift." Maya didn't blink. She had heard it all before. The code words, the condescension, the assumptions packed neatly into passive phrases. She could have shut it down right then, could have flashed her badge, dropped her title, and watched their expressions collapse. But she didn't. Not yet. Instead, she met Lennox's gaze, cool, measured, unshaken. "You'll find out soon enough," she said quietly. Behind her calm was a steel edge, one they hadn't noticed, one they were about to feel. The silence stretched a little too long. Officer Lennox stepped closer, his voice sharpening. "We can take this further if we need to, ma'am," he said, emphasizing ma'am like it was a warning. His posture straightened. His smirk reappeared, the confidence of someone who believed he held all the cards. Grady didn't interrupt. He crossed his arms, silent but solid, giving his young partner room to apply pressure. But Maya Brooks didn't flinch. She sat still, eyes steady, hands relaxed in her lap. Then in one quiet, deliberate breath, she changed everything. "That won't be necessary," she said. "I'm Chief Maya Brooks." The words hit like a hammer dropped in a church. Grady blinked once, then again. His jaw tightened. Lennox froze, his expression collapsing from smugness to disbelief. Neither of them spoke. Maya stepped out of the vehicle with calm authority. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. She looked directly at them, her presence suddenly towering. "Now," she said evenly, "I'd like to know why I was stopped this morning. Was I speeding? Did I swerve? Or was it something else?" Lennox opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Grady cleared his throat. Fumbling, "There must have been a misunderstanding, Chief." Maya tilted her head slightly, the way a teacher does when a student gives an answer they know is wrong. "No, this wasn't a misunderstanding," she said. "This was profiling. Assumptions. A flex of authority over someone you thought couldn't challenge it." Lennox glanced at the ground. Grady shifted uncomfortably. The power dynamic had shifted so fast, it left the air charged. Maya didn't gloat. She didn't shout. She simply stood in the space they thought they owned, and reclaimed it. And for the first time that morning, the officers were the ones unsure of what came next. Maya didn't turn away. She didn't soften her words or let the awkward silence do the work for her. She stepped closer, calm, precise. Her voice didn't rise, but every syllable landed like a gavel. "This," she said, "is exactly the problem with this department." Lennox looked up, startled. "You see someone who looks like me and assume criminal intent. You lead with suspicion, not service. And you use intimidation as a shortcut when you don't have facts." Grady shifted his weight. His lips parted like he might speak, but Maya held up one finger. "Don't interrupt." Her tone wasn't aggressive. It was practiced, polished. The kind of control that comes from knowing you've been underestimated your entire life and no longer caring. This town has a long history of looking the other way, of allowing officers to operate unchecked. Stops like this where no law was broken are part of the pattern. She looked directly at Lennox. "You may not even realize what you're doing, but that doesn't make it acceptable." Then her gaze shifted to Grady. "And you?" You've been in uniform long enough to know better. But you stood there. You let it happen. Neither officer spoke. The highway hummed in the distance, birds chirping in contrast to the tension thick in the air. Maya took a step back, her presence still towering. From this point forward, she said, I'll be reviewing every traffic stop you make. Personally, every report, every complaint, every body cam minute. Her voice stayed even. You'll document your cause. You'll justify your actions. And if you step out of line, there will be consequences. Lennox swallowed hard. Grady nodded slightly, eyes down. Maya didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She simply turned toward her vehicle and said one final thing before stepping back in. You're not just officers. You're examples. And as of today, you answer to me. Later that day, the squad room was full. Uniforms filled every chair. Some stood against the walls, arms crossed, faces unreadable. Whispers traveled in low waves, punctuated by side glances and subtle nods. Everyone had heard. The stop, the reveal, the shift. Chief Maya Brooks stood at the front of the room, no podium, no notes, just presence. The murmurs quieted the second she looked up. She began without preface, without apology. This morning, she said, I was pulled over by two of our own. Her voice was calm, steady, the kind that made people sit straighter. There was no traffic violation, no suspicious behavior. Just a black woman driving a nice vehicle in a town that still thinks it can get away with that kind of stop. The silence thickened. No one laughed. No one dared. I'm not here to call names or embarrass anyone. But I am here to be clear. She took a slow step forward. This department has a reputation, and not the kind we should be proud of. Biased stops, heavy-handed tactics, a culture that protects its own even when wrong. Maya's eyes scanned the room. Some officers shifted in their seats. Others looked her dead in the eye. That ends now. Her tone never rose, but the power behind it filled the space. There will be zero tolerance for racial bias. Zero tolerance for misconduct. Zero tolerance for disrespect toward civilians, toward each other, or toward this badge. Reform isn't a slogan. It's policy. It's practice. And starting today, every action, every report, every complaint will be reviewed. Body cam footage will not disappear. Stops without cause will not be excused. And if you wear this uniform, you will be held accountable. She paused not for effect, but to let the words land. You can meet this moment, or you can step aside. But we are not going backward. The room stayed quiet, but something had shifted. It wasn't fear. It was clarity, and it was long overdue. Maya stood at the front of the room, the silence lingering like dust in the air. She had said what needed to be said. But now, she spoke from somewhere deeper, her voice softened, not weak, but intentional. Human. I didn't take this job to settle a score. This isn't about revenge. It's about responsibility. She paused. We don't get to wear this badge and ignore the weight it carries. The people in this town don't owe us trust. We have to earn it. We are not here to patrol shadows. We are here to serve people. Some in the room looked away. Others listened like they'd never really heard those words before. I remember being 17, she continued, driving home from a late shift. I was tired, hungry, still in my work apron. I got pulled over 2 blocks from my house. No reason given. No explanation offered. I had my hands on the wheel, just like I did this morning. And I remember thinking, don't move. Don't breathe too fast. Don't give them a reason. She looked up, eyes steady, voice calm. That memory never left me. Not because of what they said, but because of what they didn't have to say. I swore that if I ever got the chance to change that reality for someone else, I would. Her gaze swept the room once more. This is that chance. Let's not waste it. The meeting ended, but the room didn't move. Some officers nodded quietly, almost imperceptibly as if acknowledging a truth too long ignored. Others sat still, arms crossed, faces unreadable. And a few slipped out early, without a word, but the story didn't stay behind those walls. By the next morning, it was everywhere. Local headlines read, "New police chief stops on just stop." Social media lit up one post after another. Screenshots, eyewitness accounts, clips of the department's official statement. Activists shared it. Advocates reposted it. And for the first time in a long time, people in Westford Ridge were talking about reform not as theory, but as reality. Some called her a hero, others called her a threat. Hope met resistance as it always does. Some residents cheered, grateful that someone was finally calling out what they'd experienced for years. Others grumbled, accusing her of dividing the department, of undermining good cops doing their job. But Maya didn't flinch. She didn't chase the spotlight or hide from the backlash. She let the truth speak for itself because she knew real change doesn't come quietly. It comes with pushback, with discomfort, with eyes finally opening. And for the first time in Westford Ridge, people were watching. The sun had begun to set as Maya drove home. The sky streaked in deep orange and fading blue. The town rolled past her window, same streets, same storefronts, but something felt different now. She wasn't naive. Today was a win, but not the war, because the truth is, this wasn't about one traffic stop. It never was. It was about a system, a mindset, a history, and she knew the road ahead would be long, full of resistance, full of risk, but for the first time, Westford Ridge had heard her voice, and they weren't likely to forget it. She glanced up at the rearview mirror, not in fear, but in purpose, and as her turn signal clicked into place, she said what she'd been carrying for years. The badge never scared me. The silence did. And I'm done being silent.